Am I the a-hole? I kicked my husband's sister and her daughter out of my mother's funeral. My mother passed 20 days ago. I'm a mess. I can barely keep up with work, as well as taking care of my younger sisters who are heavily grieving. Before I talk about what went down at the funeral, I'll talk about my husband's older sister, 44. She's like a mother to him. His mother died when he was 8, so his sister basically raised him. Me and her don't agree on many things. She can be disrespectful and rude. She tries to boss me around and gets involved in my marriage a lot. She has a daughter, niece, that she uses or trains to do nasty things to me. Like when she had her daughter ruin my car paint, or when she had her hide my jewelry, or when she caused me an argument with my husband by lying, saying I banned her from her uncle's house. She's 17, so at this point she's not a kid and should be aware of what her mother's doing, but they both equally disrespect me, so I'm not surprised. My sister-in-law came to mother's funeral and brought her daughter who was wearing an inappropriate outfit and kept acting mean while me and my sisters were crying. I remember sister-in-law was sitting, loudly laughing with her daughter and playing with their phones, and then both started eating during the burial service. I was getting mad, but I ignored them. Until my niece's phone started playing the ding dong, the witch is dead. My sisters heard it several times. I walked up to her to ask about it, and she said it was just a ringtone. I asked her if she thought this was appropriate, but my sister-in-law got involved and told me it was no big deal, then asked me for a charger so they could finish the video they were watching. I kid you not, I absolutely lost it and them both. I yelled at my sister-in-law to take her daughter and leave. My brother-in-law, her husband, came to talk to me, but I blatantly told him to take his family and leave. And where's my husband? Sitting watching while I argue with almost his entire family, as they tried to get me to let it go. I refused to let them stay for a minute, and demanded they leave or get security involved. That's when my husband got involved, so I told him he could leave too if he kept defending them. They left, and everyone was watching. I felt so awful, and when I returned to my mother's house, my husband started arguing, saying that his niece is a kid, and whatever she did, I should have discussed the issue privately, not make a joke out of them and kicking his sister out, then threatened to kick him out as well, in front of everyone. He said I was looking for an excuse to disrespect his sister and his niece, and what better excuse than my mother's funeral, right? That's what he said. He said I was at fault here to think that I could mistreat his sister and niece and kick them out, then expect to get a free pass because my mother is dead. Basically claiming I messed up and ruined my own mother's funeral. He called me a piece of work, then headed out. That's all that's happened. The family apologized on their behalf. Now for the top comments. Not the whole. Get rid of the husband. This is the correct answer. He allowed them to mistreat you at your mother's funeral. He sucks. Yep, this is totally where I'm at too. How many of the niece's 17 years had she been pulling this disrespectful crap on you and is still blaming you for not rolling over and taking it? No, not the a-hole. Your husband is the a-hole and weak as hell. His family are a-holes. Go to just no significant other and just no family. They have advice for dealing with crappy people. Also, ban them from your house indefinitely. That's a boundary you need to stick to. Hubby can see them somewhere else. That's just gross they would do that. I hope your hubby is sleeping on the couch. He sucks big time. What a loser. I hope he's sleeping on his sister's couch. Permanently. Not the a-hole. My blood went cold with rage at the thought of that ringtone playing at the funeral. I'm so incredibly sorry for the loss of your mother and your husband's nightmare of a family ruining it. Thankfully, your mother's love and legacy will continue to live on untarnished in her children. But it may be time to kick husband to the curb. This. Hate to add to Opie's loss and mourning, but time to add hubby to the list of lost ones. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not opening up my home for my friend? I, 30 female, met Cassie, 30 female, fake name, when I was 7 years old and we became thick friends soon. I grew up in a very abusive Indian home with helicopter parents and was kicked out when I was 20 because I came home after curfew, 7 p.m. For non-Indians, it is unusual to work while in college and to stay away from home until you're married. I asked Cassie, who at the time was living alone in an apartment that her parents own, if I can move in with her for the time being. And she said, "Sorry, no, I want to experience living alone." I felt very hurt at the time and ended up couch surfing at some friends' homes and later moved in with my then boyfriend. Present situation. We don't talk much, just text each other sometimes. I live with my boyfriend in a 2-bedroom house with our dog, and she got married at 25 and is now 7 months pregnant. Her husband kicked her out for infidelity, and turns out the baby is not his. She has no place to go and asked me if she can stay for a while. The thing is, she doesn't work, is 7 months pregnant, and I don't know how long she'll stay as she can't tell her family back in India that she's getting divorced. Plus, I feel very salty about how she treated me back then. I said no, that it's not a very good idea, and she started screaming saying that she's pregnant, and I'm heartless. I hung up on her. Not day-haul considering how she treated you when you needed a home. Plus, it's on her for cheating on her husband. I wouldn't let that kind of drama in my house either, personally. And if the OP lets her stay, she'll probably never get rid of her and a child. In fact, she'll be left paying for the baby. Since she is a cheater, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to cheat with OP's husband. Not day-haul. She wasn't a friend when you needed one, so she isn't a friend. Not day-haul. Just tell her you want the experience of living with your boyfriend. It's not fair that you should take the responsibility for another 2 people. Also, where's the baby daddy? Why can't you live with him? Can't live with baby daddy when you're single and ready to mingle until he finds out about your husband. Then no husband and no baby daddy. Not day-haul. You don't owe her anything. It was your friend who made life-changing and irresponsible decisions that caused her life to spiral. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Next story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for still not letting my sister into my house after she made me miss daughter's birth? Frankly, I don't know if I'm being an a-hole. Family seems to think I am, so just want to know what others here think. My sister, 25 female, was going to meet her dad. Not my dad, by the way, for the first time in almost 18/19 years, and she was really nervous. She asked me to go with her for support. He was staying at some hotel about 30 minutes away, and the whole ride over there, my sister had my phone to give me directions. My wife was calling me because she'd gone into labor. Then my mother-in-law was calling me too. My sister put my phone on Do Not Disturb without me knowing and erased the notifications. I didn't even realize it until after we were leaving from having lunch with him an hour and a half later that my wife's been calling me. All my sister told me was I had a missed call, more like dozens. When I found out, I was yelling at her the whole ride to the hospital. She apologized many times. Her only excuse was this was a big emotional moment for her meeting her dad, and she was scared doing it alone knowing how her anxiety is. This was the only time they'd have to see each other since he was leaving in a few days and wouldn't be back for months. I really couldn't believe it. By the time we got there, my daughter had already been born a half hour. Don't get me wrong, I was so happy to know my daughter and wife were okay. But I was also devastated to have missed the birth of my first child. I couldn't look at my sister. All I told her was to get an Uber to take her home because I didn't want her near me right now. My daughter's almost 4 weeks old and almost everyone, vaccinated, has come to see her. Last weekend, my parents came over with my sister in the car, but I said I don't want her in my home right now. They got mad and left early. I keep hearing it from my family that I'm being completely unfair, treating my sister like an outcast but not letting her in my home. But I'm just still angry at her right now, and I don't think I have it in me to be in her presence. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She knew exactly what she was doing. She made you miss something once in a lifetime, and I can't imagine how important that must have been for you. And the fact she did it to go see her deadbeat father. That's tragic and ironic. And your parents can't even see it your way a little, it seems. You have every right to be furious. Her defense was she thought my wife would have been in labor for hours, or at least hoped she would, long enough for us to do both. I'm so furious. And it never occurred to her that you would want to be with your wife during labor? She's just trying to make excuses for her awful behavior. Not a-hole. I think Opie should ask his family how he'd supposed to feel if something had gone wrong and he was sat at lunch somewhere. Thank goodness that it sounds like the birth was quick and straightforward, but it could so easily not have happened like that. It sounds like the family need to stop and take a moment to actually think through the gravity of what happened before demanding that Opie just move on because family. Not today, Hall. You know what else is a big emotional moment? The birth of your child. She didn't have the right to prioritize meeting her dad over you being present for a huge moment in your life. You can choose how to respond to that. They don't get to manage how you feel. A moment that Opie could only go through one time. Sister's dad wouldn't be back for months, sure, but he'd be back at some point, and she could see him then. Opie can't be there to see the birth of his first child twice. Not today, Hull. She didn't just make you miss the birth of your baby. She's personally responsible for your wife being denied the comfort of having her partner by her side during labor and delivery. Birth is still potentially deadly for both mothers and babies, and your sister risks your wife's and daughter's health and lives by interfering in your ability to be contacted. The fact that your family's sticking up for her makes me think she's got some sort of spoiled princess complex and will likely never apologize. And if she doesn't, your relationship with her is probably not salvageable. Last story. Am I the a-hole for saying no to my sister and her family staying with us until their house is safe to return to? My sister and her family had to leave their house because of a mold and bedbug issue. House is getting worked on. They need 6 weeks. She asked me the day before, like the day they found out about the second issue, if they could stay with me and my husband for 6 weeks. I said no. I knew it would cause blowback, but honestly, wasn't really expecting my parents to be so pissed. My sister was angry too. But the truth is, I could not live with her again. She gets on my nerves, and I never truthfully liked her as a person. I love her, but prefer not to be around her much. She's bossy as hell and loves to get her own way, sometimes not even communicating something that she's planning so you can't say no, or does something she wants knowing you won't want it and doesn't consider other people's taste. And I just know I would not be able to live with her again. When I moved out, it was such a relief to have a space from her, and I know that I get more annoyed with her when we see each other more often. 2 years ago, we went on a family vacation. Me and my husband and kids, my sister, her husband and their kids, and our parents. And my sister decided, despite me and my husband saying no, to book everyone into this restaurant for a meal, and then complained when we didn't show up, which led to a fight where I told her I didn't care if she lost money. I told her I didn't like the food, and she was told clearly that we were not going. Looking back, I regret going, but I was hoping and trying to have things be better. But they weren't. Anyway, my parents are helping her pay for a hotel, but everyone is calling me an a-hole for not helping her, but especially her kids. Especially when I already know how long it will be for. My sister told me to screw myself, and my parents said they were ashamed of me. Our parents live out of state, hence them not staying here. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole at the word bedbug. Indeed. I wouldn't even let any of them in the door. Their stuff is likely infested. I stayed at a hotel for 6 days for a company-sponsored event out of state. I had all of these scratchy bleeding welts and identified them as bedbugs. I was livid, and my bites were horribly itchy. When I got home, my wife didn't even let me enter the house. I stripped down to underwear and my clothing went straight into the washing machine. Washed each load twice and tried to kill everything. Kept the suitcase outdoors in the shed for 6 months. Don't mess around with bedbugs. They itch worse than mosquitoes and are expensive to remediate. Not today, Hull. Even without the issues between the two of you, having their belongings in your home puts you at risk of getting a bedbug infestation. I wouldn't let them near me till they're bedbug free, to be honest. And tell your sister that she can bring her bedbugs and mold spores to a hotel, instead of bringing them to your house where they can start a fresh infestation. That, combined with a hostile relationship, is guaranteed to have you regretting this on the first day, and as you pay for pest control and mold remediation after they leave. Additionally, if there is such a problem with their house that requires them to be out for 6 weeks, what is their homeowner's insurance doing about this? My insurance will temporarily house me in a short-term rental in such an event. Why do they need to come stay with you? Don't set yourself on fire to keep your sister warm. Not today, Ho. Not today, Ho. Sounds like bedbugs and mold weren't the only toxic pests in that house. If your parents love her so much, they can house her in their state. The fact that they've decided to put her up in a hotel instead says it all. Not really. They live in another state, so can't let them stay. Her husband would be away from his job, the kids away from their school.